Welcome back to Oversteer Auto Reviews. Today I am back at Mercedes-Benz in McKinney reviewing this 2024 Mercedes-AMG GT63 Coupe. And yes, you heard that right. Finally, after years, Mercedes-Benz has brought back the AMG GT, and this time not as a four-door sports car. Now, while this is the new younger brother of the previously really well-known Mercedes-AMG GT, it's a completely different car, and I will show you why. Without further ado, let's break this vehicle down and complete a review. Now, the important thing to note is that this AMG GT63 is the newer version of Mercedes' previously really well-known Mercedes-AMG GT, which I thoroughly love, so much so that I actually have a 1/18 scale model of it on my wall. Now, while that is completely irrelevant to the review about me having model cars of the previous version of this car, it's important to note that there are severe differences between this right here and the previous AMG GT that this is so believed to represent. Now, the previous generation, or vehicle technically, because this is a completely new vehicle with a new chassis and completely redesigned. The AMG GT had the Mercedes M176 4-liter biturbo V8 motor. And you're going to be asking, well, what's different between that and this? Because this is also a 4-liter twin-turbo biturbo V8. This is the M178. And you're going to be asking, well, what's the difference besides internals, compression ratio, and the name? Well, the M176 actually had a dry sump oil system, meaning that it reserved less space in the engine bay, and it also allowed it to sit a lot lower, about 2 inches lower in the chassis of the car to better facilitate handling, because lower in the vehicle means better center of gravity. In addition to the M176 in the AMG GT, it also had a transverse axle transmission, meaning that instead of being paired to the engine right up front, the transmission was in the back. This is where this differs. This has the Mercedes 9-speed MCT, multi-clutch transmission, which is paired right directly into the M178 underneath this hood. So those are two stark differences. Over the years, the AMG GT, now known as the GT63, has also acquired an all-wheel drive system, which is miles important for accelerating out of corners and accelerating from a standstill, because the AMG GT only came in rear-wheel drive all the way up until its death at the AMG GT Black Series. Will we see a Black Series of this car? I sure hope so, because initially when I saw press photos of this car, I wasn't sold, mainly because of this new headlight design. But looking at it in person, I understand that Mercedes really did put a lot of time into the design, and they actually made a good-looking car, which is something that BMW somehow cannot. Now, an important thing to note about this vehicle right here is that it heavily influences the Aston Martin V8 Vantage's design as well, since Aston Martin uses the M178, the chassis, as well as some of the internal components for the computers from the AMG GT. The new V8 Vantage has also changed with this brand new refresh. And I think it destroyed the Aston Martin, because I think that the previous generation V8 Vantage looked miles better, but now it does look a little bit bug-like, which, I mean, granted, this does too, but I feel that this bug-like design suits this vehicle more than the Aston Martin V8 Vantage. That isn't to say that, well, yeah, no, the AMG GT most definitely made a better looking V8 Vantage, but that's out of the question. That's for when I hopefully get to review an Aston Martin someday. Now let's actually get into the rest of the review. In regular fashion with all the reviews, we will start up front. Classic design language is carried through with a bit of a mixture of Mercedes' modern touch, and that is seen in the Panamericana grille, which has been known for a number of years now, vertical slots with horizontal slots as well. One thing to note is that there is additional space below the grille to feed more air into the massive intercooler, which is necessary on this twin-turbo V8, which is also bi-turbo, but I'll get into that difference later on in the video. We have the Falterbach crest instead of the 3-pointed star, which I like a lot. I think it's a really good touch on these newer Mercedes AMG models. We have a chrome lip on the bottom, and that is because the vehicle does not have the AMG night package, and that's personally how I would spec it as well. I'm not a big fan of the night package. I think we should move away from fully blacked out cars, black accents and whatnot. Bring back the chrome. We also have these brand new headlights, which are part of the modern Mercedes design line, which these are the digital light, meaning that they project designs on the walls when you start the car up, and are also adaptive based on user input with the steering wheel. So if you're driving at light on a canyon road and are turning at decent speeds, the lights will contour based on your steering input and give you the best illumination of the road ahead. Below these headlights, we have functional grills to direct air to the side of the vehicle, as well as the brakes, which is important because they're rather big, and big brakes means big cooling. Classic Mercedes-AMG design language, you have the two lines on top of the hood with really wide arches, which I'd say pays a really good homage to the AMG GT. Overall, I'd say that this is a really well-designed front fascia, and it's technically, from a technical standpoint, really well made as well, because we have radar cruise up in the front in the three-pointed star, we have a front view camera, and we have parking sensors so you don't scuff up the paint on your beautiful AMG GT63. Underneath the hood, we have the very well-known and refined Mercedes M178 4-liter bi-turbo V8 motor, hand-built by Fabrizio in Germany. This vehicle produces 577 horsepower and 590 pound-feet of torque, mated to Mercedes-Benz's all-wheel drive 4MATIC drivetrain and the 9G-tronic 9-speed multi-clutch transmission. All that gets you to 16 in about 3.1 seconds. Again, that's on a prep surface, so you're going to see a little bit of a slower speed on the road. Now, this has a bi-turbo setup, also known as a hot V configuration, meaning that we have the V banks of the V8 and the turbo sit in the middle, and that's to reduce lag because there's less travel distance for exhaust gases to power the hot side of the turbo, meaning that the cold air being rushed into the cold side of the turbo comes in faster at a higher velocity, so you get more power at a lower rev range. These turbos are bigger than what I've seen previously in an M177 or an M178 motor, and that's because Mercedes-Benz is now using F1 technology in their turbos with electronic modules which can regulate boost pressure at lower RPMs and higher RPMs. So that's something that's nice. We get more turbo response from less throttle response, which is always a good thing. We also have rear wheel steering in this vehicle, so at higher speeds it will turn with the front wheels, and at lower speeds it will turn against the front wheels, and I'd say that's a perfect thing for when you're trying to rotate out of corners. It's a little bit more annoying on racetracks, but in back roads we're not going 100% potential, then it's a really nice addition. Overall, this motor is great. The vehicle, I'd say, fits the engine perfectly, or the engine fits the vehicle. Whichever way you want to put it, this is a perfect pairing. Now here we are at the wheels. These are the forged multi-Y-spoke wheels, as I like to call them. There's something different on the configurator page, so I'll pull that up just for your personal information. This is a staggered setup, meaning that the front wheels are 295 millimeters in width, whereas the rear wheels are 305 millimeters in width. These are wrapped in Michelin Pilot Sport 4s, and they are ZR rated, which means that you can take this above 186 miles per hour if you so wish to do so. And I suppose you can, because this goes all the way up until 198 miles an hour if you have the limiter removed and are on the Autobahn, because that's not legal in the United States. I'd say these wheels look really good, but if it was my car personally, on black paint, I'd go with the bronze or silver wheel option, just because that fits my preference a little bit better. And behind these wheels, we can see the relatively large AMG brakes. These are 6 pistons. The thing is that these aren't the carbon ceramic brakes, which are $9,860 based on where you live, obviously, but expensive brakes. But carbon ceramics are a lot better on the track for heat dissipation and brake effectiveness over prolonged use. Now, this fender really moves nicely into the rest of the body. I really like how it looks. We also have this silver side vent, which is not a vent, it's just a piece of plastic with V8 bi-turbo and 4MATIC Plus written on the side, which is always a nice addition, and I really like the way that this side of the vehicle really flows into the rest of the body. Now, this rear 3/4 shot of the vehicle is my personal favorite angle on the car itself, just because it really shows the length of the car and its true width. Now, a lot of people were saying that this looks like a 911 from the rear three quarters. I kind of see it, but I still think that this vehicle has its own character and its own personality and its design language. We can see this little chrome piece running on it because we don't have the AMG Night package, although this lower portion's blacked out, so it doesn't really flow in the most uniform way, but again, we can forgive that part. We have the side view mirrors, which do fold in when I lock the vehicle. This vehicle has keyless entry with keyless go, so with the keys in my pocket, I can just lock and unlock the car with a tap of the door handle. And these flow into the body so that you have more aerodynamics when you're going across on your little endeavors. We have a really long and ovular fuel cap, which is a nice addition to have in a car like this because it gives you less room for error spinning it on your paint and just leaving it inside the fuel cap. This rear quarter panel molds into the entire car, which if you get hit and someone dents this, is going to be a pain to replace because this piece starts here behind the mirror, goes all the way up, curves into the rear bumper, the rear lights, and down up here by the side skirt, which would be insanely annoying to fix. And I don't understand how someone would go about doing that, but Mercedes technicians exist and body top shops exist for a reason, so we're just going to trust the process. In regular Mercedes fashion, the offset of the wheels is really, really tasteful because of restrictions on state laws and whatnot. They have to be within the fender, but we have this little piece because of the negative camber on the wheel. The bottom sticks out a little bit further than the front fender, so they added this little lip just to make the car legal. We also have more parking sensors, which are a perfect addition to the vehicle, and that's the basic information that you need to know with the side design of the AMG GT63. Let's move on to the back. Now, when I initially saw the GT63's press release, I wasn't a big fan of the rear end, but in black, I definitely think it looks really good. Now, the reason I didn't like it initially is because this little piece is always blacked out in every other color. It doesn't separate the lights like I think it should. And I really like the separate light design in the AMG GT, the prior generation of this vehicle. So I'd say that if that design language was carried on, it would look a lot better. And technically it is here because the whole car is black, so it looks separated when it really isn't. They're technically connected by this plastic piece in the center. On the back, in terms of badging, we have the chrome AMG badge and the chrome GT63 badge. Notice there's no S because there is no GT63S. There's the GT63 SE Performance, and Mercedes just released the AMG GT63 Pro, which has it's literally just this with an aerodynamics package. But again, that's nothing to worry about. Speaking of aerodynamics, we have a retractable spoiler. So this goes up and down based on your drive mode, and if you push the button on the steering wheel or in the infotainment system, which is always a great addition. The front splitter also has these little air pockets on the front splitter right below them, which come down and up to direct air in a more drastic or lenient way based on your driving. One thing I like about these LED taillights is that there is an AMG badge imprinted on the inside. This does not illuminate, but it does reflect light, so it looks really, really good. The lower portion, we have the US regulation plate holder, which are annoying, but oh well, we kind of have to have them. And then we have the lower diffuser, which is fake. There's no air coming out of it, but we also have fake exhaust to make up for that. The exhausts are stuck back there like they always have been for quite some time. Now, opening the tailgate can be a little bit annoying sometimes, trying to figure out which place to put it. But the good thing with this trunk, however, is that there's a lot of space, which is something that a lot of AMG GT owners really liked about their AMG GT, and the GT63 carries that through in a similar fashion. And I would be able to close this, but it's too hot and I don't want to suffocate and die.
Now on the interior, we were pretty familiar with this because, well, it's pretty much identical to the SL63 that I reviewed previously. The only thing is that this screen doesn't tilt like that one, and there's no convertible retraction thing, which is a good thing because it was really annoying and tedious to use. So we have the Napa and Alcantara, or MB Race Tex, or whatever Mercedes likes to call it, on the steering wheel. I prefer if it was completely leather or if we had the carbon sides, but again, I can't choose everything, so we will be happy with what we have in front of me. The steering wheel is flat bottomed. We have AMG lacquered on the bottom of this aluminum trim, we have the drive mode select dynamic system. You can see that the exhaust valves have opened when I do that. I'm just going to tame it back down, put it in comfort mode. Transmission options, we can put it in manual or automatic, and the start stop on and off. I can also change what the functions do, like putting the wing up or down, as well as the auto start stop and the AMG dynamics for individual mode, and the front splitter, which is also retractable, so I can extend it and I can close it as well. But yeah, this does not change. That just takes me to the screen instead of just switching it randomly. We have the haptic controls for the right screen right over here, and then we have the home button. So the right side controls the right side of the screen. We have our voice assistant, our functional button, volume and call controls, and then on the left we have our adaptive cruise control settings, as well as the functions which control this screen. I've gone over this Mercedes infotainment system a few thousand times already, so if you actually want to see a deep dive, I will link a video in the corner. Now we have the turbine AC vents, which I quite like. I like the fact that they make a really fun noise when you click them into place. Now the interior is black Nappa with red leather, and I think this is a beautiful pairing. And looking at this impeccable carbon fiber on the doors, we also have the trunk release down there. We have the haptic metal seat controls. These seats are both heated and cooled, and they have 3 memory settings. And I can also control the right seat by clicking this button and being able to move it with my own personal side. The center, if we open up this center cubby, we have a wireless charger, or as I like to call it, a phone heater, because it doesn't charge, it just heats up your phone. We have 2 USB-C ports, and we have 2 couples. And that was a joke. I mean, it's supposed to be charging your phone, but it doesn't do it really well. It just does it really slowly, and that causes your phone to heat up. This is not a pad like it used to be in the AMG GT. It's just a palm rest. I don't know what you use it for, because it's pretty far back, and then my arm is hitting against the side bolster. Now, speaking of side bolsters, those actually come into play when we go into the comfort settings, because we have massage seats, and that's something I'd like in my GT63, because this is a touring car, a sports car, touring car, use that term interchangeably. I can choose all of my settings and the ambient lights, which I have set to red because red looks good with the red interior. I don't understand what other color you'd like in this. Any other important things about this car is that we have the AMG performance pages, which shows me my individual dampening, as well as my brake temperature and my tire pressure, my G-force, throttle input and brake input. I'm not trying to rev the car right outside of the dealership because that's disrespectful. Again, more of that fun stuff. And we have an IWC Schaffenhausen watch as a sport timer, which is really, really cool. In real life, this is a $14,000 watch, but it's free in your GT63. I wish the car came with one, because that'd just be more of an incentive to buy it. Going back to the home screen, we can go over here into track pace. Yeah. No tracks in the vicinity. Well, that's what happens when you're in Texas. I can now start a drag race, because why not? So I have to put the car in manual start and then do launch control, and then it'll tell me all of the data inputs that we have had, and we have more data telemetry, which is always fun. I like the integration with track pace into the new GT63. Other than that, it's just a basic MBUX infotainment system. Going into the center cubby, pushing it down, we have 2 more USB-C ports and a decent amount of space to store, I don't know, fat wads of cash, because you have to have a lot of those to have this car. And then just a regular little glove box. One thing I noticed about the GT63 is that the sunshade is not automatic, but thankfully the sunroof is. Just kidding, there's no sunroof. And then we have more of the call function. This is for the light for the sides. We have the door light illumination setting and the call for Mercedes Me. And in case you drive this thing off a cliff, we have the Mercedes SOS button. I mean, other than that, this is a pretty solid interior. I really did like this in the SL63, and I think it fits the GT63 even better. I love the carbon fiber edition with the red and black interior, and I think that this is a really, really well made interior. Now, without more yapping, let's go and drive this car. But I did want to notice one thing. I don't like how far in this start-stop button is, especially if I'm trying to be quick and don't want to sit in the car to start it. I have to reach over in a really weird way to get to this. And then if you're left-handed and wear your watch on your right arm, then you can run the risk of either cracking your watch or cracking the screen trying to start the car, which is an annoyance of sorts. Driving the AMG GT63, and as a AMG drives, it is soft when needed to be, yet harsh when needed to, as you can see here in race mode. Burbles on the let-off, which is something I love about these cars, especially the 63 trim level. Something we are seeing less of in the C63 because of its 4-cylinder, but that is fine because this has the thunderous V8. Doing a little steering angle check with the rear wheel steering, that this turning radius is super tight. It's almost like it was a straight line with the G-Wagon's little turnaround system. Going into a race start here in race mode, you can see it go up to speed. Got up to the speed limit relatively quickly. Once the boost kicks in, you're really pushed up against your seat, which is something we've been missing in Mercedes models for quite some time, unless you had a diesel. Suspension's great. The rebound stiffness and dampening is perfection. For the comparison, I'm going to be providing 3 different vehicles, starting with the most natural competition for the GT63, the M8 Competition Coupe. This uses a 4.4 liter bi-turbo V8, similar to the M178, but this is the S63 motor. This produces 617 horsepower, a significant bump from the GT63. This is also all-wheel drive and BMW's flagship Grand Touring vehicle. It also looks a little bit better than the GT63. I won't lie, I'm going to be unbiased on this. The style of the wheels, the aggressive front fascia, the aggressive rear fascia, and just the way it drives, according to other journalists, they say that this car drives really well. You also have the option to make this rear-wheel drive in the drive mode selector, which is something the GT63 cannot do when you want it to. It kind of computes it when it needs to. For $158,000, this is a bargain. I have pretty much every single option selected, so that gives you a relatively good idea as to the competition in terms of the big 3. Speaking of the big 3, we have the Audi R8 V10 Performance, not just the regular one. Now, this is a little bit out there, and yes, technically it is a little bit more expensive, but the thing is, you're getting a supercar that's capable of doing grand touring things. Remember that the Lamborghini Huracan is based on this car. Well, they're not based on this, they're pretty much the exact same car, same chassis, same engine, same braking components, same suspension components. Everything is shared between this car and the Lamborghini Huracan, which means that this is a true bred performance vehicle, which is something you're going to be looking at when trying to buy an AMG GT63. This does have 2 more cylinders, but 2 less turbochargers, which in my opinion is a good thing. You have more of a linear power band in terms of just day-to-day driving and performance driving as well. I also think that this looks a dozen times better than the GT63. Not that the GT63 is a bad looking car, it's just when matched to a facelifted Audi R8, there really isn't much competition, especially for $184,000 new. Now, being a little bit more outlandish, we're going to compare this to another Grand Touring known company from Britain, the McLaren 570S. Now, this is used 2017. It's got 8,000 miles on it. But the thing is, this is a supercar that's also capable of doing grand touring things. A lot of people use these on car rallies between states. For $149,000, this comes under what the GT63 is selling for. And again, this is a proper car. When you're getting into this segment of vehicles, really powerful two-door sport but grand touring cars, these cars are the ones that shine in the segment. The only thing is reliability. McLarens have proven to not be the most reliable when you keep them parked for too long, interestingly enough. The more you drive them, the more reliable they are. As well as the fact that they have really small gas tanks. So you're going to be filling up a little bit more than you would on another Grand Touring car. But if your primary objective is to be sporty and use it aggressively, or track driving or back road driving very often or on weekends, then this would be a good consideration as well.
And that is the complete review of the 2024 Mercedes-AMG GT63 two-door coupe. That is a really long name, but it's not as long as the four-door version of what this car used to be, because the new four-door doesn't have the 4-liter V8 because they discontinued the 63 name plaque, and it's a whole ordeal. I've been waiting years for this car, and we finally get it, and it is absolutely more than what I was expecting that Mercedes could have done. Now, unlike BMW with messing up the 5 Series, I'd say that they've properly revived the name of the AMG GT. A truck just did a Jake brake right next to me, and that's really annoying, so I apologize for that. But this vehicle is phenomenal. I'd say it's a proper vehicle to really live up to the name of what the AMG GT used to be. A lot of people are saying the center of gravity is too high and it feels too heavy. It really doesn't when you're comparing it to other vehicles in the same segment, like the M8 Competition. That car is going to drive more like a GT car than a sports car. This is a true red mix of GT car and sports car, and I think that's where this really shines. I wouldn't take this to a track. I feel it's too streetable. I'd wait for the AMG GT63R or the Pro that Mercedes just released. For $170,000, this car is phenomenal, and the quality you get has finally reached to the level in price that you are paying. That is all for today. Thank you very much for watching. Big thank you to Mercedes-Benz of McKinney for letting me review such a famous and serious vehicle. And that is all. Thank you very much for watching, and remember to keep on driving.